Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today? Let's do it. What's the creepiest thing that has ever happened to you while you were alone? Please remember to like, share, hype, and subscribe. I'm not a believer in religion, hell, or demons of any kind one way or another. I don't believe in ghosts or the supernatural, but this is something real that I can't come to terms with logically in my head. When I was about 7 years old, back in the old country, the neighborhood kids and I would gather around my family's garage. The house was still under construction. My father had paid one man to build it piece by piece over nearly 10 years. By the late 1990s, it was mostly walls of cinder block and cement, a skeleton of a home that felt more like a hollow fortress than a place to live. That day, we were clearing out junk my family had hoarded in the unfinished storage space, giving things away like treasures to whoever wanted them. I sat on a low, rough step that led deeper into the garage, watching my friends carry off their prizes and helping settle arguments about who got to keep what. When they ran home to drop off their things, I stayed behind. The space grew quiet. That was when I heard it. Heavy, steady footsteps on the roof above me. The sound echoed through the cement walls and floor, shaking dust loose from the ceiling, so it sprinkled onto my hair and shoulders. The steps grew louder and clearer, as if someone was making their way down the stairs behind me at my 7 o'clock. I turned slowly, the rhythm pounding in my chest as much as in my ears. With each step I saw it, a deep black shadow, murky and formless, descending along with the sound. It wasn't attached to anyone, it was just there, moving where a body should have been. For a moment, I sat frozen, my breath caught, watching it as it drew nearer. Time stretched. What was likely only a second or two felt like minutes. Then instinct took over. I bolted, crying, desperate to find my friend, the son of the local holy man, because in my child mind, only he could protect me from whatever I had seen. I was laughed at and shamed, because I've never done anything remotely close to crying from pure dread. When I was in college, I came home for the summer of my freshman year. On this particular afternoon, I was at my parents' house, and after mowing the yard, decided to take a shower. Just as I turned on the shower, Mother Nature called, and I sat on the pot to do some business. It's important for the story to note that 1, I left the shower running, and 2, I thought I was home alone. At some point I happened to look at the bathroom door and noticed the doorknob was turning slowly. I was petrified, but quietly got up to fight for my life. Suddenly the door exploded open, and with a loud yell, "Wait for it," the guy who had flung open the door threw the shower curtain aside only to see nobody there. I was about to lunge at him, only to realize it was my high school brother who'd gotten home early from his summer job trying to prank me. Bastard. Honestly, when I was working at a club, I was a dancer. A lot of people were trying to lure me and drug me. I had a trick from my nail tech, which was nail polish that would change color with drugs inside. I would discreetly stick my nail inside when I received drinks and shots and could know if someone was trying to drug me. This helped me and girls a lot of times. Seriously. I was home alone after my grandmother's funeral. She died at home because that's what she wanted. So my aunts and I took care of her along with a nurse who stopped by often. I was just sitting downstairs watching television, and I suddenly heard what sounded like her calling my name. I thought it could have been one of my aunts because their voice sounded very familiar to my grandmother's. Go upstairs to look around, and no one was there. Mostly humorous. When I was a teenager, I got a paperback copy of Bram Stoker's original Dracula novel. It was much, much scarier than any movies available at the time. One day I was home alone upstairs in my room, reading and frightening myself in a particularly suspenseful section of the novel. All of a sudden, I heard something heavy creaking and bouncing quickly up the wooden stairs. I was spooked, but then our extra large-sized cat, over 20 pounds, came sashaying into the room asking for attention. I was so glad to see Teddy the cat, instead of the Count or even R.M. Renfield, the creepy guy who ate spiders. Kinda long, but explanation is needed. When I was a child, I swore that my second home was haunted by something. There was this picture of a lighthouse overlooking a cliff, and I swear if you looked at it long enough, the clouds would move or the waves would crash. Very eerie, but most likely an overactive child's imagination, right? Well, I also recall an instance where I was alone in the house, practicing tying my shoe, as a first-grade boy does. And I swear, I hear this deep, disembodied voice calling to me, telling me how to do the loops and pulls, and I remember it came from down the hallway, about 40 feet from the living room I was in my parents' room. At night, my sister, little brother, and I shared the same room, but we all unanimously knew to never leave the closet open, and it would always be open come morning. The door to our room would also creak open sometimes at night. The thing is, the true creepy situation isn't that. I'd never told a soul those experiences. They were far-fetched machinations of an overly imaginative grade schooler. That is until my senior year of high school, where my buddy, my sister, and little brother are all hanging out one Friday night after the football game. We would always throw on scary YouTube videos. We watched Chills before the Foot Lettuce event and just talk scary in general. That's when my sister started to talk about the creepiest thing that happened to her. How she would hear voices in the same house. How the picture moved when she stared at it just a bit too long. How she would have terrible nightmares as a child, mind you, of the water heater door leading to a basement of leaves and mangled bodies of dead women on a couch with "You're next" written in blood. How she'd see things move in the hallway late at night, also dreaming of eyes staring from the closet. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I guess she noticed that I was freaking out, because aside from the horrible nightmares, we had a one-to-one experience, one I had never shared at all with anyone. I had never been more horrified than I was in that moment. I've had lucid nightmares and sleep paralysis, but thinking of this moment never fails to make my hair stand up and tears well in my eyes. It doesn't help that I consider myself a religious man, but if everything I believe is to be considered true, then I know I have nothing to worry about. I still don't have to like it, though. As I'm sitting here reading these, my son was playing, a game, so he was listening to some of them. He enjoyed them. I think that some were a little freakier than others. Oh, that's kind of creepy right there. But yeah, I'm not kidding. That's my boy right there. And we're about to go to soccer, so hopefully they win. Go Sharks. Have a great day, guys. I was driving home on a nasty night through the middle of nowhere, not even a house for miles. One side of the road was a sheer mountain face, and the other was a steep drop to the valley below. All of a sudden, I see this guy in a trench coat just standing by the side of the road, no car or anything. I keep driving, but when I look back, he is just gone. There was nowhere for him to go, so where was he? I used to work tables in a restaurant. One day this guy I've never interacted with before comes to me and hands me a framed picture, smiling nervously. I look at it, and it's a picture of me at a staff table. I was done eating and staring at nothing, probably thinking about something deep and clever. Yeah, unlikely though. I look at the guy. He explains timidly that he found me so pretty that he took my picture and framed it so I would see how pretty I was and hold on to it forever. Sweet gesture, but kinda creepy. 5 seconds later, the manager walks by, hears the story, bursts out laughing and decides this is perfect, just perfect, and hangs up the frame in the back. On the wall next to the work schedules, in a place where everyone that works here looks at practically every day. He thought it was hilarious. Everybody had a laugh. Then we kind of forgot about it. The picture became a part of the wall. It's been 8 years since I've worked there. The staff changed, the managers changed over the years, everybody I knew changed jobs and everything. But my best work friend still remains. You know, the one person that could probably do another job better for her but stays in this place by pure force of habit? The one person that will always be there and still work there 20 years after you've moved on? She decided to keep the picture. She told the new managers that the girl on the wall was a waitress that worked here and died in an accident, and that the whole staff decided to frame her picture and honor her or whatever to keep her memory alive because she loved this place so much. You get that kind of stuff. Yep. 8 years later, when I occasionally visit the restaurant to say hello to my friend, I have a quick glance above the schedules. The picture's still there. Late 90s, family trip to Disney World. We were driving through the rural Butte, Georgia, nearing the Florida line. Running out of gas, we take a random exit and find ourselves in the most scuzzy backwoods gas station I've ever seen. There were possums in cages outside, raccoon jerky in Ziploc bags for sale, and the gas pumps were straight out of the 1950s. I didn't want to go into the bathroom, but I had to pee very badly. I walk into the men's room, 1 urinal, 2 stalls. I look under the stall, see nothing, hear nothing, bathroom empty. I settle at the urinal, unzip my pants, and begin to pee. As I'm peeing, I see and hear commotion from the nearest stall. Someone is slithering like a snake under the stall wall. He comes closer, and I see it's a black child, a boy about 8 to 10 years old, naked as the day he was born. He slithers on the dirty ground right up to the urinal and lifts his head up exactly even with my junk. He stares straight at it and says, "That's not the smallest or the biggest, it's just okay." Then turns around and slithers back into the stall under the wall again. I finish, zip up, skip hand washing, and leave as fast as I can. To this day, I have no idea what any of that was about. Just after high school, I was dating this girl. We were both at my mom's house at the time, during summer break. She had lost her glasses that morning and couldn't find them anywhere. She went to take a shower in one of the upstairs bathrooms, and I went outside to wash my car. I'm just about finished when she comes outside wearing her glasses, and I ask her where she finally found them. She looks at me a little weird and tells me that I gave them to her. I'm confused because I've been outside the entire time. She then tells me I opened the bathroom door and set them on the counter while she was showering and then left. Now, we were the only ones home at the time, so this disturbs me a little bit. I swear up and down that it wasn't me, so she starts to freak out. I grab a baseball bat from the garage and go into the house thinking someone is in there that shouldn't be. We creep around the house looking in all the good hiding spots until finally making it upstairs to my brother's bedrooms. I start to move from my brother's bedroom into his bathroom, where the door opens inward between the crack of the door. I see someone hiding between the door and the wall. Right then, I finally sort of understood why people in the movies freeze when something is about to fall on them or hurt them, because I was terrified. It lasted maybe a second, but it felt like minutes. And then I bashed the shit out of this door with the person hiding behind it, but they didn't cry out. Then I realized it was my brother's bathrobe hanging on the back of the door. My girlfriend swore the entire time I knew her that someone put those glasses on the bathroom counter, but I never found anyone in the house. I used to regularly dream that a ghostly blue figure of an old man walked from the kitchen to the dining room to the living room, then up the stairs past my bedroom at the top, along a short wall, and across the room at the end of the hall, disappearing directly into the wall instead of using the door and going to the last room. Every time he hit that wall, I'd wake up. It was always exactly the same ghostly motions in the dream. The figure would follow a certain path right through the furniture, one arm slightly forward, face glazed over, and he glided instead of stepping. It went through a wall at the base of the stairs that had once had a doorway, until my parents broke out the wall and restored the doorway. Sometimes in my dreams I would follow, sometimes other family members would follow instead of me, but always I was filled with terror, and always when the ghost got to that final wall and disappeared, I would wake up. I probably had this dream weekly for over 10 years, starting from when I moved into the bedroom. I never had the dreams outside that house that I can remember. The dream stopped happening when I left for college, but would start again when I went home for breaks. I haven't slept there for 13 years now, and I haven't had that dream since that last night I was in there. It made me think the place was haunted. The dream has a little more to it, though. While visiting home well after I had moved out, I asked my parents whether they knew anything about the renovations in that part of the house. Some similar houses in the area had back staircases, and I was just curious about whether ours ever had one as well. My dad said yes, ours had, and he lifted some of the kitchen ceiling tiles to show me where the stairs had been, under an area that is now a closet. When I looked up, I immediately realized that the top end of the stairs had been at the point in the wall where the ghost in my dreams had always disappeared. I didn't want to talk about that, though, so I just shrugged it off and remarked that someone must have taken it out of the make more room in the kitchen and have the upstairs closet. My dad looked at me rather coldly and told me, no, that's not why the stairs were gone. He had once thought the house was haunted and talked to a next-door neighbor who had been there for over 60 years about it. It turns out that after a previous owner's husband had died, she had the staircase removed because she thought it would stop his spirit from haunting her. She had also filled in the doorway that my parents had reopened. Then I asked my dad why he would have ever asked the neighbor about the house being haunted, because I didn't know anyone else in the family had ever thought that. Dad told me it was because he had recurring dreams about an old man who walked from the kitchen to the dining room to the living room, then up the stairs, past my bedroom at the top, along a short hall, and across the room at the end of the hall, disappearing directly into the wall. We were both a bit stunned to find out we had lived for years having this same dream many, many times. When I used to go to college, I had to cut through a particular cemetery, the one attached to this church. Snip. Lack of space meant very few people had been buried there since the 1900s. Anyway, under this one tree was the grave of a very young girl just on its own. Said her name and the date she died, 1885, age 12. I don't know why, but I always got a solemn feeling as I walked past that grave every single day. Eventually it consumed me. I had no idea why I was getting that feeling walking past the grave, so I googled her name. Within about a week I had found out who she was and why she was buried there. She was buried there after suffering from a lung complaint. According to the family Bible, she died most peaceably in her mother's arms. Shortly after she died, her family left Brighton and founded a private school close to London. From what I can tell, the family never once returned to Brighton to visit her grave. I worked with the family biographer for a while, digging up as much as we could about this girl, because he had barely heard of her, save the death certificate and the mention of the family Bible. It is like they erased her from the last 50 years of their life. After a while, the trail went cold. I still had thoughts of how sad it was that the girl never had her family visit her after she died, and once again, those thoughts consumed me. I fell asleep one night and dreamed of her and her dad. She told me she was fine now. I never dreamed of her once after that point, and the uneasy feeling went as I walked past her grave. A couple of months later, the guy I was working with emailed me a picture. He had found a photograph of her. The problem? It was death photography, because that is what they did in the day and age, as it was too expensive to regularly hire a photographer. So the only existing picture of her is from the day she died. The kicker? The girl in that photograph looked exactly like the girl that I saw in my dream, the one that told me she was fine now. Up until I left England, I left flowers by her grave. This was the only grave in the whole cemetery which ever had flowers by it. My friend do it to this day, because nobody deserves to be forgotten, even in death. The year was 1983. I was a 21-year-old cute bartender who worked in a happening nightclub. I was driving home late one night at about 3 a.m. along I-95 in Connecticut. I was in the middle lane, and it was raining terribly. I was almost out of gas, but I figured I had enough to make it home. Thank goodness I was alert enough to notice a white van drive by me in the slow lane. My radar went on when I noticed the van drive past me, and the driver hid his face from my view. The vehicle looked shady, and it had a New York license plate. I was very aware of this van, and I noticed during the drive home that the driver had maneuvered his vehicle behind mine and was maintaining a distance. As I got off the exit to get home, I watched it in my rearview mirror as the white van also exited a distance behind. I was freaking out because I was almost out of gas and my house was approaching. I didn't want to stop because I knew I was in danger and I didn't want him to know where I lived. I drove past my house and decided to take a right-hand turn to see if he would follow. Sure enough, I could see the van's headlights make the same right turn. I drove past a local convenience store, hoping that a police officer would be parked there. The area was dark and deserted. I chose to drive to the local police station, which was about 7 miles away. I remember the terror I felt during that long drive. It was 3:30 a.m., pouring rain. My gas tank is on E, and the town was deserted, and cell phones weren't invented yet. This white van followed me through several neighborhoods. I took a right-hand turn onto the road where the police station was, and he continued to follow me. I parked my car in front of the police station and ran inside. I noticed the white van speed away. I remember that when I ran up to the policeman to tell him what happened, I was paralyzed and couldn't speak. I think that's the only time in my life where I couldn't talk due to terror. So that's the happy ending. I made it to the police station. My car didn't run out of gas. Perhaps the lesson is the story is preparedness. Always be aware of what's going on around you and make sure you have enough gas and cell phone power when driving, especially at night.